This fruit could save your eyes from blindness. Most people believe that losing vision after 60 is inevitable, but there's a disturbing detail that is rarely discussed, and it's hiding on your plate. I am Dr. Ana Esperanza, a medical doctor specialized in eye health, and I have dedicated my career to uncovering the darkest secrets of human vision. Today I'm going to reveal what science has discovered about a fruit ignored by the industry, and how it can protect your sight without drugs or surgery. Write in the comments the phrase, "I want to see the truth," because at the end of this video, you'll discover the hidden limit that may decide whether your eyes keep seeing or sink into darkness. Since ancient times, the loss of vision has been regarded as one of the most merciless curses of aging. It is not simply about seeing. It is about identity, independence, and dignity. Close your eyes for a few seconds and try to imagine. You wake up, reach for your glasses on the nightstand, but even with them, the letters of the morning newspaper blur into indistinguishable shapes. The faces of those you love melt into shadows, and the world around you dissolves into a dull, gray haze. This is not a rare nightmare. It is the daily reality of millions of people over 60. In Brazil alone, more than 3 million elderly people live with some stage of age-related macular degeneration. Worldwide, the number exceeds 200 million. Behind these staggering statistics hides a silent epidemic, conveniently veiled by promises of stronger glasses, endless appointments, and surgical interventions that rarely guarantee lasting results. But the most disturbing part is this. While everyone is led to believe blindness is the unavoidable price of growing old, discrete pieces of evidence suggest otherwise. Research that barely sees the light of day indicates that destiny is not dictated solely by genetics. It is also shaped by daily choices. What you eat, what you neglect, the subtle decisions you never realized could determine whether you keep your sight or slip into the shadows. This idea is too uncomfortable for most doctors to mention in their offices, yet it has been confirmed by independent studies. Certain foods, rich in antioxidants and bioactive compounds, have the power to slow the erosion of eyesight. But this truth never appears in public health campaigns. Why? The answer is simple, chilling, and consistent. There is an entire system that thrives on blindness. The global industry of eyeglasses, contact lenses, prescription eye drops, and specialized surgeries moves billions every year. Ask yourself, why do so many areas of medicine advance rapidly, yet ophthalmology remains tethered to the same tired promises of thicker glasses and more expensive operations? The explanation is not the absence of science. It is the absence of will. Solutions that are too simple threaten an empire built on fear. Take Ernesto, a 67-year-old retired bus driver. After years on the road, he began noticing constant blurred patches in his vision. The diagnosis was swift and cruel: macular degeneration. His doctor told him to prepare for surgical interventions and progressive vision loss. But Ernesto made a choice that his doctor never suggested. He began eating a particular fruit every morning, after stumbling upon a forgotten article in an obscure journal. Within a few months, the blurring stopped worsening. His doctor dismissed it as coincidence. But how many coincidences are needed before a pattern reveals itself? Or consider Cecilia, 72, who had abandoned her lifelong passion for embroidery because she could no longer distinguish fine details. Encouraged by her curious niece, she began eating the same fruit daily. 6 months later, she hadn't regained perfect eyesight, but her decline had slowed enough that she could once again embroider tiny flowers into fabric. Her story never appeared in headlines. No ophthalmology conference mentioned her name. Why? Because if people knew, if every elderly patient realized that something as ordinary as a fruit could slow the march toward blindness, how many would continue paying thousands for consultations, procedures, and lifelong treatments? The manipulation becomes obvious. An entire industry prefers to offer partial solutions rather than acknowledge that the real medicine may already be sitting in your kitchen. Official science does admit one thing. International studies have confirmed that antioxidants like lutein and zeaxanthin play a vital role in eye health. They act as shields against free radicals, reducing oxidative stress that eats away at the retina over time. But here is the detail they never emphasize. These compounds are not only found in overpriced pharmacy supplements. They also exist in fruits so common that you could buy them on your next trip to the market. And yet, the industry prefers to market bottled capsules, each one packaged with a hefty price tag. Macular degeneration is not just about the eyes. It is about the gradual theft of autonomy. The elderly who lose their sight stop driving, stop reading, stop recognizing familiar faces. They become isolated. Their world shrinks. The psychological damage is immense. Depression, loneliness, even dementia often follow. Blindness is not just darkness in the eyes. It is the erasure of identity itself. And when fear is profitable, fear is protected. This is why the simplest truths are buried. But what if there is a fruit, one you have probably walked past in a supermarket, that could delay this descent into darkness? What if the solution has always been within reach, yet systematically erased because it does not fit into a billion-dollar business model? Over the years, I have seen the same disturbing pattern repeat itself. Patients who report small improvements are told their results are random. Doctors lean on convenient explanations, genetics, chance, pure luck. Rarely do they dare to admit there might be a link with diet. To do so would destabilize the foundations of an entire industry. And like every empire built on dependence, ophthalmology prefers silence to risk. Perhaps now you are wondering, what is this fruit? What secret hides in plain sight? That is the question millions should be asking, yet few ever do, because they have been conditioned to believe there is no way out, that blindness is inevitable, that aging itself is a sentence. But what if destiny can be challenged? Do not expect the answer in television ads or glossy clinic brochures. The truth does not arrive packaged in slogans. To reach it, you must first understand what is really at stake, an empire that profits from your darkness and fears any spark of light that might set your eyes free. There are studies, there are testimonials, there are even entire communities that know the difference this fruit makes. And every attempt to share this truth is met with the same barriers: discredit, silence, suppression, coincidence, or an orchestrated effort to keep the world blind, not only in sight, but in awareness. So here is the provocation I leave with you. If something so simple can make such a difference, why does almost no one mention it? Perhaps the answer is exactly that. It is too simple to sell, too simple to justify billion-dollar treatments, too simple to allow the empire to continue growing. And so, it was silenced, erased, forgotten. But there is one fruit in particular that they never mention. When people speak about vision loss after the age of 60, the answer you usually hear is cold and familiar. It's natural. It's just age. There's nothing you can do except adapt. That sentence is repeated so often that it feels like scientific law. Yet in reality, it acts as a quiet death sentence for the eyes of millions. The deeper truth, the one very few dare to acknowledge, is that this explanation hides something far more unsettling: the refusal to admit that simple everyday factors, like what you eat, can shape the future of your sight. The uncomfortable reality is that blindness, in many cases, isn't only biological. It is manufactured by neglect, by silence, and by an entire system that thrives in darkness. One of the most insidious threats is oxidative stress. Your eyes are exposed to it constantly. Every second, light, screens, pollution, and toxins attack them with free radicals that slowly corrode the retina. This is an invisible fire, burning without sound or warning. By the time the first blurry spots appear, by the time faces fade into shadows and letters blur on the page, much of the damage is already irreversible. Clinical tests may confirm macular degeneration, but they rarely reveal that this fire could have been slowed, even tamed, by simple choices no one told you about. The second hidden threat is the silence of the industry. Glasses, lenses, eye drops, surgeries, all of them sustain an empire worth billions. Now imagine the chaos if millions of seniors learned that something as ordinary as a fruit could help slow the march of blindness. Imagine if thousands of surgeries suddenly became less urgent because people had already begun protecting themselves naturally. Do you think that truth would be promoted in glossy ads and hospital pamphlets? Of course not. Health, in this case, is a threat. Silence is strategy. But perhaps the most devastating threat is psychological. Once someone is convinced blindness is inevitable, their mind surrenders long before their eyes fail. That belief paralyzes them. It erodes hope. It hands their future over to a system that thrives on dependency. Blindness becomes not only a physical affliction but a prison of the mind. And it is within this bleak context that an old, almost forgotten story emerges. A story that still flickers in the shadows like a stubborn flame. More than 50 years ago, a Brazilian physician named Álvaro Mendes visited rural communities in the state of Minas Gerais. What he observed disturbed him profoundly. Men and women in their 70s retained astonishingly sharp eyesight. Old men still hunted in dense forests. Grandmothers embroidered delicate patterns without glasses. Children laughed about how their elders could thread needles faster than they could. Blindness, which should have already crept in, seemed absent. Dr. Mendez was intrigued. He began documenting habits, recording testimonies, and observing diets. What he uncovered was a pattern so consistent it could not be ignored. Every one of these elders consumed a particular fruit daily. It grew in their backyards, was used in desserts, and played a role in their homemade remedies. To the villagers, it was nothing unusual. To Mendez, it was extraordinary. In 1972, he published a modest report in a small Brazilian medical journal, suggesting that the antioxidants in this fruit played a crucial role in protecting the retina, but the study quickly vanished. Within months, the journal ceased publication for lack of funds. The report was never translated, never cited, never acknowledged again. What happened next only deepened the mystery. Some claim Dr. Mendez was mocked and discredited by his peers. Others whisper he was pressured into silence, perhaps even bribed. What is undeniable is that he disappeared from professional circles. His name faded from conferences. His research was erased from the official record as though it had never existed. Yet fragments survived, photocopies yellowed with age, marginal notes scribbled in his handwriting. In one surviving piece, he quoted an elderly patient who said, "My eyes do not tire as long as I eat the fruit each day. There were no pills, no imported supplements, no high-tech interventions, just something simple, natural, and dangerously accessible. Dangerous, not because it harmed, but because it threatened." If true, his discovery posed a threat to every business model built on treating blindness as destiny, and Mendez was not the only one. Decades later, independent researchers in Asia and Eastern Europe began reporting similar observations. In certain remote villages, elders who consumed antioxidant-rich fruits daily showed far lower rates of macular degeneration. These studies exist, but they rarely reach the public. Instead, they remain buried in obscure journals, published without translation, dismissed as cultural curiosities. Coincidence? Or a deliberate effort to suffocate truth beneath mountains of irrelevant data? Meanwhile, everyday patients are left in the dark, literally and figuratively. They are told blindness is unavoidable. They accept thicker glasses, pricier drops, riskier surgeries. And when they dare to ask about alternatives, they are silenced, sometimes with pity, sometimes with scorn, as though seeking natural solutions is foolish. But isn't it far more foolish to assume an industry that profits from your blindness would willingly reveal a cure? And here lies the most chilling detail. The fruit is not exotic. It is not rare. It is not hidden in some faraway jungle. It is common. It is present in markets and stores, available to nearly everyone. And that is exactly why you have never been told about it. If it were profitable, you would already see campaigns, slogans, flashy advertisements, supplements branded as miracle solutions. Instead, the fruit remains invisible. Now pause and imagine the impact if the truth were widely known. How many grandparents could continue reading to their grandchildren? How many elderly people could keep driving safely? How many could preserve their independence and escape the depression that too often follows vision loss? How many could simply live with dignity? The cost of concealing this knowledge is not only measured in dollars, it is measured in stolen lives. And perhaps the most disturbing realization is this: how many times has this truth already been buried? How many studies quietly archived? How many doctors silenced? How many testimonies lost because they contradicted the narrative? Because here is what must be understood. The fruit is not a miracle. It will not grant eternal sight. It cannot reverse every stage of degeneration. But it can slow the descent, if and only if it is consumed within a hidden threshold. That threshold is delicate, unstable, and invisible, and it is precisely the one thing no one dares to reveal. Cross that limit, and the fruit becomes no different than any other food. Stay beneath it, and the protection may never activate. It is a razor's edge, one that few ever walk consciously. And beyond that razor's edge lies a truth even darker, a silence even deeper, a conspiracy even harder to face. By now you have realized that blindness after 60 is not as inevitable as you were led to believe. But here lies a more disturbing truth. Just as the fruit can protect, it can also fail. There is a hidden line, nearly invisible, that separates benefit from indifference, and whoever crosses that line unknowingly may believe they are safe while silently walking into darkness. The eyes are demanding organs. They consume enormous amounts of energy, rely on flawless circulation, and require delicate balance between light and shadow. Any disruption to this equilibrium weakens the retina, accelerates degeneration, and opens the door to blindness. That is why relying on a single habit, without understanding its limits, is dangerous. The fruit can act as a shield, but only within the right measure. Too much or too little, too soon or too late, and its power fades away. Forgotten studies have already shown that protection emerges only within specific ranges of consumption. Think of it like a lock that opens only if the key turns at the exact angle. Those who consume too little never activate the effect. Those who consume too much overload the body and negate the benefit. This is the detail no one dares admit. It's not enough to know the fruit exists. One must also understand the threshold. And this threshold, fragile, delicate, and unseen, is precisely what allows confusion to flourish. On one side, the fruit is promoted by charlatans as a miracle cure, which quickly leads to disappointment when it fails to deliver supernatural results. On the other side, skeptics dismiss it entirely, reinforcing the belief that nothing natural can help. Between these two extremes, the real truth is lost, buried under noise. But the pattern is there for those who look closely. Testimonies tell the story. Luis, a 69-year-old man, ate the fruit in excess, convinced that more was better. At first, he felt a slight improvement, but weeks later, his digestion faltered, and he abandoned the habit altogether. Soon he was back to thicker glasses, convinced it had all been a lie. Marina, 74, approached it differently. She incorporated the fruit modestly, daily, like a quiet ritual. 2 years later, her vision remained stable, defying her doctor's forecast of near total blindness. 2 lives, 2 choices, 2 very different outcomes. The conclusion is unavoidable. The fruit is a shield, but a fragile one. It requires balance, discipline, and patience. Without those, it fails. And that fragility is exactly what makes it so dangerous to the industry. If the truth were revealed in full, millions might preserve their sight, slashing profits from surgeries, lenses, and endless treatments. But if the truth circulates distorted, exaggerated, or trivialized, people lose faith, and the cycle of dependence continues. It is the perfect trap. Allow the truth to exist, but in fragments, so incomplete that it becomes harmless. Another danger is banalization. Because the fruit is ordinary, found in everyday markets, many dismiss it. If it mattered, we'd already know, they say. But its very simplicity is the reason it has been erased. No glamorous campaigns, no million-dollar slogans, no shiny bottles on pharmacy shelves. It is too cheap to exploit, too natural to patent, too accessible to monopolize. And so, the fruit remains hidden in plain sight. Attempts to industrialize it only deepen the deception. When extracted, fractioned, or encapsulated, the fruit loses its synergy. Its power is not in a single compound, but in the living orchestra of nutrients working together. Break that orchestra apart, and what remains is a hollow echo. A product sold at a premium, but stripped of its essence. A capsule that promises much, yet delivers little, keeping customers dependent, while the real secret rots quietly on grocery shelves. So the uncomfortable question arises, has the industry deliberately chosen to distort this truth, selling incomplete versions to maintain dependence? History suggests the answer is yes. Countless times, natural remedies have been dismantled, repackaged, and monetized while their full potential was buried. Why would this be any different? And beyond biology and profit, there is the psychological prison of blindness. The fear of losing one's sight is one of humanity's deepest terrors. The elderly who believe there is no escape surrender willingly to whatever is sold to them. They live in quiet panic, awaiting the day when the world goes black. This vulnerability is exploited, generation after generation. Every new prescription, every new pair of lenses, every new promise of surgery reinforces dependence. The fruit remains hidden not only to protect profits, but to preserve fear. Now imagine the world if the truth were unleashed. Grandparents reading bedtime stories without heavy glasses. Women in their 80s embroidering fine details with precision. Men driving safely, recognizing faces, walking through their neighborhoods without stumbling. Millions living with dignity, freed from the terror of blindness. But such a reality is dangerous to those who rely on dependence as business. Ironically, traces of this truth can be found in ancient traditions. In Asia, scattered records describe fruits used in rituals to preserve sight. Monks who spent long nights copying manuscripts reported unusual clarity of vision even in old age. Modern science dismisses these stories as folklore, but perhaps folklore is sometimes just suppressed truth wearing the mask of myth. And in this collision of myth and reality, the symbolism becomes unavoidable. Light versus darkness. To see is not just a biological act, it is a metaphor for life itself. To lose vision is to lose the world. To slip into shadows that feel like a living death. It is no accident this knowledge has been silenced. Revealing it would mean freeing people from a prison of fear, and no system built on fear ever willingly frees its prisoners. Which brings us to the most disturbing revelation, the hidden threshold. It is not enough to know the fruit exists. The real secret lies in the boundary, the invisible line that determines how far the fruit protects and when it ceases to work. This threshold is never printed on labels, never taught in consultations, never revealed in advertisements. It is silent, mysterious, decisive. And the most frightening part? Crossing that threshold does not depend solely on personal discipline. It is influenced by soil quality, cultivation methods, even the way the fruit is prepared. In one context, it is a powerful shield. In another, it is nearly irrelevant. This instability is the perfect weapon to keep people confused, trapped between hope and resignation. The secret, therefore, is not only the fruit itself, it is the understanding of the invisible line between light and shadow. That hidden threshold is where the most unsettling truth resides, and almost no one dares to speak of it. There exists a hidden limit that may decide whether your eyes continue to see, or whether they plunge forever into darkness. Throughout this journey, you have been exposed to a disturbing truth. Blindness after 60 is not an unavoidable sentence, but a destiny that can be shaped. You have been led through shadows, hidden data, forgotten stories, and silent conspiracies. And now, the time has come to reveal what was promised from the very beginning. The fruit exists. It is not a myth. It is not folklore. It is not an invention. It is real. It sits on grocery shelves, in markets, in everyday places. Its power lies in antioxidant compounds that can slow the march of macular degeneration, strengthen the retina, and build a shield against the oxidative stress that consumes your eyes over the years. The unsettling part is this: you have likely seen it, perhaps bought it, maybe even eaten it, without ever knowing. And yet no one ever told you that it could stand between you and blindness, that silence is no accident. It has been carefully built, fiercely protected, by a system that thrives on fear. The fruit is too simple to be accepted as an official solution, too simple to justify billions spent on glasses, drops, and surgeries, too simple to be hailed as a miracle cure. That is why it was buried, dismissed, erased. Meanwhile, millions continued to believe darkness was inevitable. But now you know, it isn't. The secret that has passed through ancient cultures, appeared in forgotten studies, and survived the calculated silence of the industry, is right in front of you. The great truth is that vision can be preserved through daily choices, and this fruit is one of them. This is not magic. It is science made inconvenient, a science that was buried because it threatened to expose a lie. And here lies the critical detail. The fruit can slow the darkness, but only within a hidden threshold. That threshold is delicate, invisible, unstable. It is not about excess. It is not about abandonment. It is about balance. Those who find it may protect their eyes. Those who ignore it will remain vulnerable. And almost no one dares to say this, because within this silence lives the most dangerous truth of all. Perhaps now you are asking, which fruit is it? How much should I eat? How should I use it? These answers will not appear in TV commercials, in medical pamphlets, or in pharmacy brochures. They are hidden, waiting for those who choose to search. And the fact that you are here, listening until the very end, places you among the few who are willing to see beyond the official story. Now you must decide. Will you continue believing the official version that insists on your dependence? Or will you open your eyes to the forbidden truth, to the secret that threatens an empire worth billions? The fruit is real. The threshold is real. And the choice between light and darkness is closer than you think. Before we end, I want you to do something simple yet powerful. Write in the comments the phrase, "I choose to see." Because that choice is more than words. It is a rebellion against silence. It is your declaration that you refuse to be manipulated, that you reject the destiny imposed on you, that you are ready to open your eyes to the truth. And if this video has brought value to you, subscribe to the channel and share this message, because the more people know, the harder it becomes to keep this truth buried. Remember, darkness is not inevitable. There is a hidden limit between seeing and not seeing, between light and shadow, between hope and despair. This fruit may be the thin line that separates those two worlds, and the choice to cross that line is now in your hands.